Hello and welcome. Be Awesome at Facility Management Podcast listeners, viewers, followers, and live question makers. I am your host, Joshua Peach, and I'm excited once again to be on site. And we brought back a past guest because he just happened to be with me, Mr. Kenny Wertz. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
You're like a second time.
In like a week?
Yeah.
I think you were at my intergalactic headquarters just a week ago.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And how does he just happen to be with you? Where are you?
It just happens. We're in St. Joseph, Missouri. Well, first of all, Paul, we know
And
where
was
you
he
are.
there when you got there? Like you got there and Kenny just happened to be there? Is that
I
how?
was just in the neighborhood.
I
I heard their French crullers are really good at the donut shop, so I swung in.
Yeah. So that we just came right along. I showed up and picked them up on the side of the road. So
Nice.
no, we'll get into that, but we miss you, Paul.
Yeah.
We see that it looks like you're in Watertown. The grandkids might be over because
Grandkids are over, so I'm in the penthouse studio.
Okay. Very nice.
Well, we had an opportunity. How we got here and what we're doing before we get to the episode is we are in St. Joseph, Missouri. I've been here before. I was blown away. This is actually the home of. We might talk a little bit about Hilliard. This is the home of Hilliard Supplies, but Casey Housman has become a friend and gave me a tour in May, and I was just blown away at the thoughtfulness of this district in many different ways, and a lot of the cool stuff that they're doing. And it's not that they have all the money in the world or all the resources in the world, but they have some of the best people in the world. And so I wanted to talk about it. I want to talk about Casey's experience. And as you look behind me, this wall is one of the most powerful statements in any operations department that I've ever been to. Behind me are pictures and memorial cards for every facility custodial operations employee that ended their career here in the operations department starting in 1968. Kenny, is that what we said?
They started working in 68, I believe. Yeah.
Well, they might have started working earlier than 68. They retired in 73.
Yeah.
The retirement was in 1973. So everybody that's retired since 1973 from the operations department is on this memorial wall. And that's a pretty powerful statement. So, Casey Housman, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here
on this
once again.
Warm Thursday.
Yeah,
It is a warm Thursday. Yeah.
it's warm in
Yep.
here.
Yep. And Paul, you're going to be here tomorrow, so we'll figure out a way to get an episode in with you. We'll have some time here, I think, to jump on when you get out here, which is exciting. But we're out here a day early for an onsite with a school district that I'm doing for Be Awesome, and then we're going to Branson, Missouri to do the Missouri School Plant Manager Association annual conference, which is amazing. It is it's a phenomenal event. I'm glad that you guys are going to be able to be a part of it for your first time. My first time going was last year, so I have an unfair competitive advantage of knowing what we're in store for. So
what is that distance? The state of Missouri is boggling my mind, seeing that we've been traveling all over it.
Yeah,
the same path twice. From
About
where
4
you
hours.
Branson.
About a 4-hour drive from here.
Okay.
Yep.
It's about 4 hours for most people. It's probably
Yeah,
2
Josh can do it. Josh
Yeah,
can do it
2
for free.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I did the
No bio breaks, no food breaks. We just go hammer down.
I did the map quest, and there's a bunch of roads that are closed, so we're going to have to get creative. But we got 4-wheel drive.
Because you did
And,
MapQuest. Those roads were closed in 1989.
They weren't even roads then.
Mind your business.
We
Mind
were-
your
We were
business.
just talking about that.
I get things done. So, hey, look at this, Paul. Matt Oliver back at it. This
Yeah,
guy
Oliver.
comes out of nowhere. I mean, this was our follower early on. He went away for a little bit because I think he's working hard up at his district, and he's telling us if we have a chance to go to Kansas City Joe's. It's one of his
Kansas
favorite
City
barbecue
Joe's.
places. I don't think I've been there yet.
Casey Joe's.
I'm down with it.
It's
So
actually
Matt,
a
we're
7-Eleven.
I'm taking a note.
Yeah, we're going to be in Kansas City tomorrow before we head to Branson. So we will hit it up and let you know how we make out. There's not going to be anything left there, Matt. And we got somebody across the river, Burke Jones. Won't take Josh long since he is still clean as a whistle from his colonoscopy. No pit stops required. Hey.
That's
For
it.
those of you that don't know, if you don't listen to my standard Be Awesome podcast, I actually did an episode last week titled "My First Colonoscopy," and it's not too graphic, but it definitely gives all the details of.
And he had a guest speaker with him. It wasn't just him talking. He
Oh, yeah.
finds other people to talk about this subject.
Yeah, well, why not? It's fun. Mm-hmm. So Casey, let's dig into why we're here and what really got me excited to have the opportunity to come out here for a little bit, which is you and your team and your district and the work that you do. So, tell us a little bit about. I know your background, but how did Casey get into the big office at St. Joseph's Schools? You didn't start in schools.
No, and I've only been in the school system for 4 years. So it started out, 20-something years ago, I started building construction, building towers, telecommunication towers, broadcast towers all over the United States. Everything from the foundations to stacking them to working on them at the heights and everything. So that involved a lot of travel. And I just got tired of traveling. I had children, and you come home 6 weeks later and they look a little different and they don't remember you. So it was time to make a change. So I went in, I had some friends that worked in a manufacturing plant of all things. Agriculture. And I grew up in a small farm town, so I had a background in agriculture myself as well. So I went to work there. That time I was willing to take about anything I could do. And I loaded train cars the first year with grain. Then I just kind of worked my way up, became the director of operations 10 years later after when I left. I left there and came to the school district. There was an opportunity in housekeeping as a supervisor. I took the opportunity and again, worked my way up through there, and that's where I am today.
Very cool.
I'm very happy to be here. I love the education the whole atmosphere is just rewarding for one. It's a totally different world than the private sector. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
It's very rewarding at the end of the day.
Off topic. What was the highest tower that you worked on?
780.
That's got to be. These are the towers. These are the towers that are just held by wires and look like toothpicks, just going straight up in the sky. Yeah.
I got a picture I'll show you. From up there, you look down, and there's a round white dot.
Yeah.
That's the top of a water tower.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So how long does it take to climb?
That one took us about 7 hours just to rig it, because you're only carrying a 1/4-inch piece of rope that's tied to you. Then you got 50 pounds of gear, and there's no ladder on that particular tower. I was in Brandon, Mississippi. No ladder on it, so you're climbing the actual X runs of it all the way up.
Oh wow.
And there's no safety climb on it either, like a hook is.
Yeah.
So you've got what you call monkey tails. You clip that on there and you climb up, click it, take that one off, clip it. So you got a 20-pound snatch block, and then you got a 1/4-inch rope.
Yeah.
That 1/4-inch rope, when you're, the anchors and everything away out there, and that's where the rope's dragging in from, it gets pretty heavy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of drag on you.
Wow.
So it takes a lot of time to get up there.
Well, I tell you, anybody's complaining about working in a school, go climb a tower with monkey tails. That'll get you a whole different
It's a
perspective.
workout. It's a workout, that's for sure.
I've tried that, believe it or not, and it was after the last call, and on Newton Street in Needham, and there was a whole bunch of people that didn't want me to do it. They came, they had badges and blue uniforms and all that. So I never really got up there where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's the effort that counts.
Well, there's always tomorrow, Paul.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And we could get some pointers and tips from Casey, and see if we can find one in Branson to try and climb.
Yeah, so there you go.
I don't care for heights anymore.
Yeah, I've never cared for heights to begin with, and that's just. But I do know someone that they haven't figured out the light, not having to change the lights on those things. Like I can't remember why, but the lights have to be changed periodically. And I met someone that's his job, and there's some towers, and we're getting way off topic, but there's some towers that are over 1,000 feet that they have elevators and things that you can go up. Yeah,
at 200 feet usually there's an elevator on those.
Yeah, so I was trying to see if I could get up to go on one of those things just to kind of get a life experience. But I before they really checked into it, I chickened out and just said, yeah, you know what, I don't need to do that. I'm good. I'm good. Thought better of it for once. So it's great. So you get here and tell us about the district. Where it is. It's
Sure.
home of the Pony Express.
It is home of the Pony Express. The actual original stable is just across the street.
Yeah.
Matter of fact. Yeah, home of the Pony Express. Still every year, they still ride all the way across. One guy on a horse. They meet up, all the way across every year. They stop here.
Oh wow!
That's where it stops. So
On the way to Sacramento.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big event, for the city for one. That's what we're kind of founded on. And then you get Jesse James' house is just down the street as well.
Yeah.
One that he was shot in at the Patey Museum.
Yeah.
So yeah, St. Joseph, Missouri. We're in the far northwest corner of the state. We're literally a half a mile from the river, right where we sit now.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the river is Kansas.
Yep.
Of course.
That explains our
That
being in
explains
Kansas.
our drive through Kansas this morning.
Yeah, on our way here, I took a wrong turn and we ended up in Kansas. So there we are.
No
Yeah.
wonder it took you so long to get here.
And the truth comes out.
Hey, I did what I could.
It landed at 11:30. They didn't get here till 1:30.
Yeah.
So I was kind of
MapQuest.
It was a MapQuest shortcut.
Yeah, it was
That's
a
all.
MapQuest
It's a
shortcut.
MapQuest shortcut. Yeah, they're gonna put it on the Pony Express next time. MapQuest.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, the roads were closed.
So we're at far northwest corner. It's a city of about 75,000. We've got a little over 11,000 students, 25 schools, 30 buildings in total. And all of our buildings are fairly aged for the most part. We've got two newer ones that were built in 14, but the rest of them average probably around 1945, 1950.
Yeah, the one I spoke at was
That was built originally back in 1930s.
amazing.
part of it.
This auditorium is it's like
Beautiful.
it takes you back in time.
Like the Gilded Age kind
Oh
of.
yeah,
cool.
really,
Very ornate.
really
Oh,
cool.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and definitely the hot lights
Mm.
warm you up. They warm you up on stage.
Hotter than
Yeah.
this room.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was cool. And so how many do you have new buildings coming on, or you just
No,
kind
not
of
at this time.
you're just doing
We're
improvement
just
and
maintaining what we have and
Yeah.
improving as we move forward. I mean, there's been some talks in the past of possibly updating some buildings or building some new, and it's just we've never been able to settle on a good idea with the community, and what they actually want and what needs to happen. And
Yeah.
so we're constantly working on more community engagement and getting more people involved and to understand what we're looking at and the needs that we need to do.
Yeah, it's really hard today. I can't imagine with I love old buildings.
Mhm.
Like we just went to the admin building,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and that's just got good bones.
Oh,
Like
it's
just
built.
just the wood, just the
Glazed
everything.
block in the hallways for the walls. It's just
Yeah. It's really nice, but as far as it's really hard to stay in that competitive field with the technology. It's so hard for your technology team, right, to be able to wire and have good app. You guys do a great job with Wi-Fi and everything else, but that's a hard thing, and it's a hard sell. Like today with the cost we did construction costs. I don't know if we did that on the podcast last
Almost
week. but
doubled.
Yeah, the construction costs are just astronomical, right?
We talked about it briefly. I think
Yeah.
in Massachusetts that we're looking. It's Massachusetts at least. It's almost $1,000 a square foot
Yeah.
for a new school.
So in the state of Missouri, is there support from the state when it comes time to build public buildings like this, school buildings? Do you get funding or any type of?
There's some funding out there. I'm not real familiar with what's available, but yeah, there's a lot of funding out there. There's funding out there just maintaining some of the stuff that you currently have to a certain extent. But there's
But a
stipulations.
lot of it's
obviously,
off
have to
your
be there.
local tax base, isn't it? If I'm correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Most of our revenues off of our local,
Yeah.
our operating.
Yeah, most-
levies are local tax.
Is the community looking for conditioned air? I know that's been a big push across the country with all these crazy heat waves that we're having and all
Sure.
that stuff and the impact on education. I mean, it's hard to retrofit, like to Josh's point, these old buildings have really good bones, but they don't have much
They're hard,
insulation.
and,
Right.
and they're
So how do you go throw AC in a building that is it's going to just be not efficient?
very difficult.
Yeah.
We just finished phase 3 of about a $40 million project just to air condition our high schools.
Oh, wow.
We've got 2 of the high schools fully air conditioned. One of our biggest high school, the one you spoke at.
Yeah.
It's not fully air conditioned still. We've still got three separate floors that got to be done. That's phase 4.
How many buildings in the district?
30 buildings.
30 buildings. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
it's a good sized
Yeah.
district.
Our oldest building is built in 1901.
Wow.
Oh,
We got the comments is heating up here. This is great. Chris Crockett says Matt is correct. Joe's is amazing. So, Chris, I'm gonna.
We're going for lunch.
Yeah, I think we're going for breakfast,
barbecue.
lunch, and dinner. We're gonna bring some. We're gonna bring some out to Branson too.
I'm gonna fill my pockets.
And Matt's gonna be jealous because he says he goes out once a year for school competition. I always stock up on seasoning and sauce. We're not just talking about schools here. We're talking about antennas and we're talking about barbecue. I mean, this is we should have set this
barbecue
description
country.
up on something else.
This is a one-stop shop.
But now we're back. Look, Chris Crockett brought us right back full circle.
Yeah.
He says, have you done any renovations to the 1930 admin building? I'm in the middle of one, and they are built like a bunker. Walls are 24-inch thick of block.
Correct. That's 2 of our schools that we just finished air conditioning. We're in buildings built in the 30s.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys can
We
compare
went
notes.
on our systems. We went all hot water, cold water, chillers and boilers.
Yeah.
We've done different ones, but we've chose that route. We've had some problems in the past with the VRVs and things like that, and this has been the most efficient. So
There is that new wave of Infrastructure Act funds coming from the federal government to look at geothermal.
okay,
That there should be some updates coming out from when you can submit, how you can do that filing. But depending on the community and seeing how St. Joseph's based up, upwards of 40% of the project would be covered by a federal grant,
But
which makes the ROI.
You can't do geothermal everywhere, though, right?
Not everywhere. You have to make sure it's a specific location, but they're also doing solar too as part of that.
which we have solar.
Is geothermal used in this area, like in Midwest? I know in parts of Texas they can't do it, right? There's no.
Probably because of the heat.
Yeah.
That's because they hit oil.
Yeah, that's right.
They hit oil.
Texas tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've tried some of the geothermal.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you have a backup source is the best.
Yeah.
Here, just for the fact that the temperature swings. I mean, it's Missouri. It's like it's heat in the morning, air conditioning in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That's what we're kind of known for. I mean, you can be anywhere from 19, 20 below in the winter to 115 in the summer.
Yeah.
And that's where you tend to struggle. You get some extreme lows.
Right.
Well, that's we're going to touch on that, I think, because the weather piece is something to talk about. Chris Crockett said VRF, and they said, "Never mind, you went the correct route. I'd love to switch back." So yeah, well, there you
Thanks,
go.
Chris.
Yeah,
I appreciate
vote
that.
of confidence. You did it. You done right. So, but it's kind of interesting when we're talking about this because those schools that were built in 1930. I mean, it's a great example of what. Yeah, I don't know that they didn't have the advanced technology for HVAC back then to do a lot of the stuff that we're doing today. But I don't know that they had these violent weather swings that just wreak havoc on facilities teams. I mean, we were talking offline about 2 weeks ago. In Massachusetts, where I live had 2 tornado warnings in 1 week and 2 flash flood warnings same week, and I can't remember in all my life that I had incidents like this. And it's just the weather events and their impacts on your team, on your buildings, and on the environment that your kids are learning in. Like we just had, what was it, the opening week or the week after opening week, all the schools that were closed in Massachusetts
bunch of schools closed
because it was too hot and there wasn't airflow.
Right.
So
You think back in the day, a lot of, even when I went to high school, grade school, we didn't have air conditioning.
mhm.
But I will stand up and defend currently everybody. The learning environment is totally different than what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The needs are different. You need to provide those conditioned spaces. And I know a lot of people argue with you about it. Well, that's not the way we grew up. And
Yeah.
sometimes we all have to start realizing that it's a different day.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're going to have to adapt and overcome. And we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids told me to stop telling the story about walking to school barefoot. They said that's
Uphill both
Both
ways.
ways in the snow.
Yeah.
the snow.
That advertisement's like,
Yeah.
Grandpa, you're living in Miami.
Yeah. Right.
Chris Crockett on the geothermal says people are shifting from geothermal because of rock and the well's not sustainable. Yeah, so
It depends on the location and back to the VRFs. The VRFs that were being installed 5 years ago is completely different technology than what's being installed today. The technology is moving so fast that the VRFs are able to handle those swings because prior, even 5 years ago, If it was minus 15, you couldn't make heat.
Right.
But now they've changed the refrigerants, they've changed the technology, they've caught up, that now it's looking viable. It's looking more and more viable. So it's a tricky thing that some of the technology is moving so fast.
Yeah.
It's to try and keep up with it. But in order to put in geothermal, you do have to do test wells, and you have to figure out, because there are some areas where it makes perfect sense. And there are other areas where it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Sure. A lot of times, and this is just me and my basic knowledge of it, like they have to drill a lot of holes sometimes to find that perfect.
Last project I looked at, in order to provide adequate heat and cooling for a high school, we're going to have to put in 280 wells.
Wow.
It's a lot of wells. It's a monster high school.
Yeah.
So at the time, without federal funding, the return on investment was outside of like 60 years. The ROI was way out of whack.
Yeah.
So that to the community, you know, to the community's credit, you know, they fancied themselves as green. But when they got the price tag, they said, well, what kind of green-ish? Do we say we're really green? Like, can we go lead silver? Is that the bottom lead? Yeah, we're going to go for that. That's what we can afford. And we ended up with the RFs, and they're very happy with it.
Here's an interesting question for you. I'm looking at changing the geothermal system in the library that I'm working in. They've had a geothermal system for 25 years.
Yep.
Wow.
And we're ready to change it up. Keep the wells, change the equipment. The equipment's failing. So looking at the money that's coming from the feds, where they're trying to get everybody to move off of fossil fuels, there's a ton of money for geothermal and solar. But if we are already off the fossil fuels, will we still be able to collect that money if we renovate our building?
That's a good question. Because the credit, how they structure the IRA funds is it's actually a tax credit that municipalities can actually take advantage of now. And it's the first time that they've gone this route with it. But when they start to release the information on it, it's probably too soon to know, Paul, but it seems like they are grandfathering in any projects that are starting after June, whatever, of this year. So if your project gets rolling and you keep really good documentation, once the grant applications are available, I would say apply.
Yeah, we're still in the feasibility study right now. So,
yeah. Well, then, but have your engineer and architect tell you.
Yeah.
Isn't that why we hire them?
That's right.
Yeah.
We tried that. That's why they're asking me.
Again, more Paul.
More Paul. So, I started to ask you this question when we drove over here from the admin building. You get your kids go to school here.
They do. Absolutely.
That's
They're both in public school.
that's got to be like an added layer of pride. And I walked to school.
Absolutely.
I walked to school with your kids when I was here
Yep.
in the summer, and the principal and you were talking about, I think there was a modifying the nurses space, and you're talking to the principal, and there's your son like walking into the school that he's gonna be coming in the fall.
Right.
That's like
I take pride in it for sure.
like, yeah, I mean, it's just the pride of ownership. It's like from one house to the other, right?
Yep.
Would you think of it like having it any other way? Like, is there, I don't see, it happens occasionally where there's not a lot of facility directors that have their kids in the school anymore. It used to be a lot of them.
Well,
I did. I had my.
Well, no, I know there's one on the other end of the aisle, but that doesn't happen that often.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And so, yeah, it used to be more prevalent.
Yeah.
But it seems like people don't like working in the community where they live.
Yeah.
The best thing that I did was move out of my community when I made the second move to Newton, because I didn't live the job day and night.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool having my kids, my high school age kids, working there, in the same district as I was in. And I'll tell you what happened once was my dad graduated from Watertown High, and he was there with a group from the class of 48. And they were going to tailgate at a football game, and they did a tour of the high school, and school was getting out, and I was in the lobby with my dad, and my son came around the corner. So there were 3 generations in that lobby, and none of us got a picture of it. I kicked myself down. What are the odds of that?
Paul takes you down this road. If you haven't figured it out, Paul goes down this road every once in a while. You start to get this tear in your eye. You start to get emotional about something. And you're like, this is a powerful moment. This is a moment.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he just drops.
Wham!
He does a mic drop. And he's like, yeah, here's one of the most amazing things. 3 generations of Anastasia here in the same school, da 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 da. And nobody got a picture.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's but I think there's something special to that, and I think I hope that I see more of it, where that pride of ownership and that ability, like you got to be able to. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day, and they was talking about the team members that had their kids in the district, and there were complainers in the town. There was parents that were complaining about this work that was getting done, and I just simply said, you do realize that the director of facilities has 3 kids in the school district, the same school district that you're complaining about, the same district that your kid's in. Do you think if that facility director wants to have a bad environment for their own kids? Because that's about as strong as sentiment as you can have.
Mhm.
You want the best for your kids. And if you want the best for your kids and they're in your buildings, then you want the best for their kids too. And people need to see that. And that's why I say I love it when I hear and when I get to see and experience that actual interaction between the work and the kids and the pride. And your kids are proud, right? Your kids are proud of you.
Oh yeah, they're proud.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like my last year, my daughter was in middle school. This year she's in high school.
Yeah.
But even to this day, I'd be like, Dad, I get a text middle of the day. I'm thinking, why does she have her phone? Well, it's because her friends, Dad, I'm hot. It's hot in this room. I'm like, really? Really? So yes, they got like
I know the feeling.
Right at the source.
Yeah.
They used to come up to me when I was standing in the lobby with an architect or an engineer, and we're looking at some project, and they come up and say, Dad, can I have a couple dollars to go down to the cafeteria? It's like they hit me up for money because they know I'm not going to say no in front of the architect or the engineer.
Right. Right.
Dad, it's hot in my classroom.
Yeah.
Matt Oliver, I'm not a facility director yet. I'm working on classes to get there someday, but I am a lead custodian in the district my daughter is in, and my wife is a science teacher in. That's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
That is pretty
There you go.
That's powerful right there.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was we got a lot of that in Missouri last month. We talked about it, a lot of family working there. I should have asked about the kids. There was a lot of family members that work together in a district. I should have asked the question of where of those people, because one of the districts had like 40% or more of the faculty and staff was related. And
when we talked in Campbell to the superintendent, right? His wife is a PE teacher, I think. In the district. She came over to talk to us. And
yes, and I know that I know their kids were in the school district.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. We got to talk about the 500-pound gorilla in the room. First is that you have a robotic line machine that doesn't have a Be Awesome sticker on it. It's got every other sticker on it, but doesn't have a Be Awesome sticker on it.
Well, we will put one on there today.
Okay, well that's and if we can do a logo someplace on some grass just for some fun. I'm just saying, maybe in front of the Pony Express.
It could happen.
It could happen.
I'm just saying, the technology's capable
Yeah.
of
Very
spraying Be Awesome.
Yeah,
It
I think it's
really
very
is.
doable.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this machine because it's getting a lot of play. You put some LinkedIn posts on it. I've talked about it. Your team, I was talking to Kyle. Right, Kyle.
Yeah.
I was talking to Kyle in the shop a little while ago, and I was like, the accuracy on this thing. He goes, and you couldn't believe. He says, you can't believe some of the hills and the dips and everything. He said, you see it rocking and rolling, and when you look at that line, it's still
That's
straight,
perfect.
and the accuracy is like within 1/8 of an inch,
Plus
right?
or minus 2 centimeters.
Plus or minus 2 centimeters. Like,
It's
think
amazing.
about that.
To spray a football field, a lacrosse field, a soccer field.
Anything you want.
How long does it take?
Parking lot
So how long does
in
it
grass.
take?
Not on the pavement yet.
Okay.
How long does it take to spray to do a football field, line a football field? Not
So
it can do logos and it can do all that stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. So the beauty of it is, in the past, we had say I had 4 painters, and when it come in, you start coming into spring.
Yeah.
Or you're starting to paint for sports, soccer, and vice versa, and then you're continuing to paint all through the summer.
Yeah.
For one, to keep your lines. Otherwise, you got to go out there and take all the guys and re-stencil everything, So, I mean, even on, say, football season, when they're playing out of town in Kansas City or whatever, you're still painting that field that week.
Yep.
Because you don't want to lose those lines.
Yep.
You know, and you got 13 fields right now, and they're going around setting all these up. And it takes a lot of time. You have to start really early just to have them ready for the students. So the beauty of it is I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's like a giant robotic cricket machine.
Yeah.
So it's all saved in the iPad, and you go out to that location, set the GPS device where it has a little port
Yeah.
that it goes into on each field, and you pull the field up and you tell it, do I want full line football field with numbers and everything, or just hash marks?
Yep.
Do the whole thing, kit caboodle, end zones. It's about 3.5 hours, and all you do is hit play. You'll have to fill it up one time. It takes about 12 gallons of paint.
Yeah.
Wow,
To paint the entire thing.
that's amazing.
But
And how many hours would that take if your team did it? How many people?
4 guys, and they're probably 20 to 25 hours a week per guy,
Wow.
just maintaining those. And then, so you got your sprinkler heads, your sprinkler systems on all your fields. Most fields do anyway. So you GPS program in each sprinkler head. Otherwise, I was paying a grounds guy. He would walk across every field every week and put a little dot where each head was so they could find them.
Mm-hmm.
You program these all into the robot. You tell it locate heads. It'll go around and mark every one of those sprinkler heads whenever you want. So you're not doing that any longer either.
So the
It's
RO,
a real quick ROI. We paid for it already the first year we had it.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So I didn't know anything about it until it came out. I was talking to you about the Echo autonomous mower.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a bunch of different mowers out there now. Too.
Yeah, Husqvarna's got one, and I don't know the difference of which one's better than the other. I think that they work a little bit different. The nice thing about
they work a little different. Some work off of a wire perimeter that you put in the ground.
Yeah.
Others work off of GPS, which your painter probably works off of GPS.
Correct.
Yeah, which
Yep.
GPS
Satellite
is
signal.
better from what I'm.
But yeah, it's the technology. It's just ridiculous because, like you said, it frees up so much time that it's not that your staff is strapped painting. Now the person that's there filling the machine with the paint can go weed whack around the fence, can go pick up the litter after the football game, can go
He's
do
mowing
so
the practice
many
field next to it, or
Right.
so many other tasks that you always fell behind on.
Right.
Yeah.
Can be accomplished now. So it's great.
So are there any stories like we wanted to paint the football field and we let it go, and then someone went and checked on it and we had a soccer field painted?
No.
Nothing
No,
like
when
that.
we first got it during the whole programming and getting it initialized in the very beginning, on our football fields, they all have, your running lanes for your long jump and everything. It kept diving off into the sand pit for some reason, but when we started watching, it just looks beautiful, perfect line. All of a sudden, it just stops, takes a right turn. It's like,
Well,
what are you going?
Likes the beach.
yeah.
But that's really the only hiccup that we've had. So,
Oh, that's great.
And we got to put a sticker on it.
yeah.
And Chris Crockett says, "Keep up the work, Matt. You'll get there." And we're behind you, Matt, on that. We know you will, because we hear how hard you're working. I'm probably working hard on the keep taking. I think Matt was the one we were talking about taking the shoes off when you go into school.
Yeah,
wasn't that
Nice.
that was Matt a while back, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the best idea going. Get cubbies for
Great.
shoes and make everybody take the shoes off.
Yeah, give them slipper socks.
Give them slipper socks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then
Swap
just polish the floor.
Yeah.
Hey, now you're
Yeah.
thinking.
Perfect. So what's probably been one of your greatest one of your greatest, like, wow, this was really something I feel really good about, what I did, my team did. You did something huge for the state, first of all, and I know you're not going to talk about it because you don't talk about yourself, but I'm gonna. I hope you don't mind. You did a lot of work pulling data and information about lead water testing, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So dig in a little bit about that, because that's pretty amazing stuff, and you don't talk about it much because it was a lot of what you did.
Sure. I mean, it was a team effort, that's for sure. I mean, I helped, did my part. I mean, luckily my experience in food manufacturing, helped us out quite a bit there.
Yeah.
So when they first came out with the first initial bill to go to the Senate, it came out as a 0.5 requirement, nothing over 0.5.
Yeah.
From
From any drinking
From any-
source.
any drinking source whatsoever.
Mhm.
Your current bottled water that you buy on the shelf is 5 parts per billion, not 0.5.
Yeah.
So the requirement in the food industry is 5 parts per billion.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Would you like to get to 0.5 or 0.2? Or absolutely, but this is virtually impossible.
Right.
So we were asked by a state organization to give some input and reasoning on why it needs to be changed before it actually goes into a full-fledged bill.
Right.
And gave them a lot of I guess did some groundwork, talked to the water companies, I talked to some people back from where I was at in manufacturing and just to make sure that the standards were still the same. And they were. So we, presented our case to, or Charlie did presented our case to some of the lawyers, and lo and behold, they met with the state Senate, and we changed legislation. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a pretty proud moment. I still remember that night that Charlie called me. I was sitting on the couch with the fam, and he called me. He's like, "You should be so proud." I'm like, "Okay, well, tell me why." And he was telling me. So yeah, it was humbling. I mean, really, really was just stating the obvious. I mean,
Yeah.
there wasn't.
Well, and Missouri is the largest producer of lead, or is the
It's
largest.
the largest producer of lead in
Yeah.
the country.
Yeah. So that's yeah. So I think if there's some place to look as far as guidance and what they're doing, and if it's right or wrong, or if it's, that's probably a good place to start, right? Largest producer of lead. You guys you guys have all of your mandates or requirements of when you have to have those drinking sources. And you guys have brought in a lot of, because I've sat in on, I've done what Paul and I did that session on Get the Lead Out, right? Paul and Lee Summit. And I mean, it's really interesting the conversation and the dialogue, because, we can say that you have to do this testing and it's for any drinking water source. Well, in elementary school, every spigot is a drinking water source. In a high school, the outside hose and spigot is probably still a drinking water source for the big Gatorade containers. And so how do you measure that and put it all into place and have it so that you're not doing what is required or thought of as a requirement, because those wouldn't be considered. You have to put in not just the requirements, but the considerations of other things that might be a requirement, right?
Absolutely.
Even a science lab that's got multiple faucets. And these were all things that in a million years I would have never thought of. But sitting in this one class with you guys and your thought-provoking questions and well, what about this in your scenario? You guys are bringing a lot to the table. It's like, hey, this is all great, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff to think about, and who's going to be in charge of that. So
Right.
That's a huge hats off to you. And you should be very proud of yourself and the team that helped you, everybody that contributed to it.
Missouri School Plant Managers.
Yeah.
That's where it started.
Yep.
There's a lot of great guys on it.
Yep.
Great people, and ladies.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a really good group. I mean, we've got the conference coming up this weekend. We'll all be in.
Yep.
It's going to be the biggest one yet, for sure.
Yep. And Chris Crockett says, I'll need to chat with KDHE when it's time. The lead bill hasn't made it out of the committee, but has been a conversation for a couple of years now in Kansas. So yeah, and Chris, we're going to hopefully see you this weekend.
Yeah.
So there'll definitely be some time to talk about this stuff in
Absolutely.
person, which we're looking forward to, because we talk about Missouri. We got a reason why Kenny is here. And Kenny, you're on 2 back-to-back podcasts, but last week you were talking about being executive director of MFAA for Massachusetts.
Yeah, getting ready for our fall conferences coming up.
And
in
this
October.
week you got a different shirt on.
This week I changed hats, changed shirts. Yeah.
Yeah, you do double duty. You're an executive director for 2 organizations, so you're actually out here for the National School Plant Managers Association, which is your other hat as executive director.
Yeah.
And this is a first. We're going to have.
What gets confusing is that I'm also out here for the MFAA.
Yeah.
Because speaking about your earlier comment, we just had one of our members post on our message board in Massachusetts, does anyone have a tornado policy for our schools?
Yeah.
Because we've never had to deal with it. I said, just so happens,
Yep.
I'm going to Missouri,
Yep.
and folks from Kansas are going to be there. And if anyone's got a policy,
Well,
They're going to know.
in Missouri, this is the first person I know that had a direct hit of a tornado and had to go in the storm shelter.
Yeah.
So
That was wild.
that was I literally, because
Yeah.
I just say things just because why
That's
not?
right.
And so Casey and I were talking one night, and I was like, I think we just had a tornado warning or something, and I was like,
Yeah.
hey, you you ever seen a tornado? And he's like, yeah, I actually had one hit my house. And I was like,
well, okay.
I was like, well, I guess that just took this whole conversation to a whole nother
Oh, yeah,
spot.
it went to a whole different level.
Yeah, it went to a whole nother level. And and it was, I mean, traumatic, scary, and the shed that ripped off with the John Deere tractor staying in place. And
poor neighbor who just put a brand new shed up and had a brand new little lawn tractor in there, and it took the whole shed, but left the lawn tractor.
There you go.
But that's pretty interesting.
Nothing runs like a deer. I mean, that's important. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the deer runs, but not away from a tornado. Not away from a tornado.
No.
Duck and
It's really
hide.
kind of interesting how tornadoes, how it's not selective, but how
It makes no sense.
it doesn't. And
Well, we had the one in Western Mass that one of our friends at Sonadella,
Yeah, Fast Eddie.
they were doing a high school, a brand new building, brand new high school with an occupied existing high school. And the tornado ran between both school projects. And the only thing it took out was the job site trailer.
Yeah.
And he's like, the trailer went, phew, but the two schools are standing. And it's like, what the? It's just, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, that tornado was 76 miles, and it started in downtown Springfield, right over the river, and it ripped through.
Yeah.
It ripped right along. If you do a search for tornadoes, Sturbridge, Springfield to Sturbridge, it'll aerial or a space. It'll show you the line that actually cuts directly through the middle of the state, and it literally runs along the Mass Turnpike for 76 miles, within a mile of the turnpike, and then it crosses 84 in Sturbridge where it ended, and it just abruptly ended.
And for us, born and raised Massachusetts folk, that's the first big time we've ever had to deal with a tornado. So that's why it's a hot button for us. And it's like, ooh, even one of my friends that we're gonna see tonight. He moved out here, and I'm like, why did you move to Kansas, man? We don't have to deal with tornadoes in Massachusetts. One runs through. He texts me. He's like, oh, don't have to deal with tornadoes. So I'm like, yeah, screw you.
Yeah, what have we had? We've had 3 or 4 tornado watches in the past 2 weeks.
No, we had an E1 in my town in July. We had an E1 that literally it went directly through the middle of our town.
Yeah.
And we have 4 major roads or arteries that go north to south, and it blocked all of them. There was no north to south access because there were trees that were down on all of the major roads, which you never would have thought of, right? You never would have thought about that stuff.
So back to your question, yes, I'm here for NSPMA this week. So it's supporting Missouri. For the National Association, we're having a board summit on the Saturday in Missouri. We're going to do a hybrid where some of our board members, Casey being one of them, is going to be there. We're gonna strategize, figure out what we're doing in the future.
Yeah.
I fly home Tuesday, and then I fly back out Sunday to Michigan, ASBO, to go present at Scott Little's conference in Michigan. So it's been
Nice.
it's been a weird time for sure.
And then while the national board is meeting, the Midwest is doing something never been done before. Charlie and show me state, man. They show you. They show you. It's
That's for sure.
They put some work together, and Charlie and the MSPMA board put together a meeting of the minds for the Midwest states, and invited Oklahoma and Kansas and Arkansas and Tennessee, and I don't think anybody's come from Wisconsin, but Wisconsin invited a number of states in the Midwest to all come together and have a meeting of the minds on Saturday as well. So this has gone from a small state show to one of the largest, if not the largest, Midwest state show.
Show me up.
Yeah. It's a show me up show.
That's it.
Yeah.
You think your conference is good?
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
Yeah. So Chris says, hopefully Oklahoma has a policy. We have to do annual drills just like fire. I can't think of a policy in place though. I'll dig into it though.
No, thank you. Because it's policies, it's procedures. We've got like 2 sentences in some government guide that says, go to the lowest floor and go to the inside hall.
Yeah.
I think we're looking for more from an operations standpoint. What do you do when the tornado is active? What do you do during recovery? And that's the piece that we don't have.
Gotcha.
How do we inventory what got damaged? How do we work with the insurance companies when federal funds are implemented? How do we track the number of trees we lost on site? All those little nuanced things that happen during a disaster recovery that we're familiar with blizzards, we're familiar with floods, we're familiar with hurricanes. Those are easy.
Yeah.
Tornadoes were just, it's a new world for us. So we're trying to figure that out.
Well, also the reality of, you go from a shelter in place to possibly a shelter, right? If the school isn't hit, the school isn't hit by the tornado,
and you got to open your doors and bring people in.
Now you have to open your doors and bring it all in. And I think that's a piece too that doesn't have and well, that's
where were we? We were in Atlantic City. Paul, remember we were having dinner with the gentleman whose shelter was during the hurricane down there?
Yep.
It was in his high school. So the community had a whole bunch of people in his high school gym. And during the hurricane, the gym roof ripped off the building.
Right.
With the people inside of it.
Full of people.
Like, okay. All right. Well, the town shelter now is it's we had a skylight view. That's nice. And I'm like, luckily no one got hurt. Yeah. But it's like there's it's a new environment that we're working in and trying to figure these things out as we go along. And it's like, what do you do?
Yeah. And nothing's off the table as far as a weather incident or any incident for that matter. And you have a bunch of different drills. I'll tell you the off topic, not with the weather, but I think I told you this is a couple of years ago. The superintendent was, I don't know if this has been done in other places, where the superintendent created this or got it from someone, but I thought this was genius as far as drills go. In order to not put a negative impact or a trauma in young kids, they did active shooter drills, but they treated it as if it was a hazardous waste spill. So the relocation drill.
Mm-hmm.
So they called it a hazardous waste spill in the school for relocation to another school, so that especially these elementary grade kids weren't doing all of this stuff thinking that there was an active shooter. And I thought that was really kind of a neat way to do it. But all these other drills, they're all very unique. Yeah. Fire drill, you have to get out of the building. Tornado drill, you have to get inside the building, right?
And like Paul and I are presenting later this week is facilities impact on special education population.
Yeah.
So 1 in 12 kids coming through our doors on a daily basis are neurodivergent.
Yeah.
So if you have a full autism class where kids don't respond well to a changing environment.
Yeah. Never mind loud noises and rustling around and a whole bunch of panic.
Fire trucks and panic. So yes, we have a shelter in place drill.
Yeah.
Is the shelter in place drill designed for every student as an individual in the school, or is it designed for all the kids as a group?
Yeah.
And those are some of the little nuances now that our world is not the same as it was 20 years ago. And these are all the small things that us facilities folk, we're being thrust into a new world that we need to be cognizant of all that. So it's a unique opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yep.
And I'm glad you didn't lose your shed and tractor.
Me too.
How was your barbecue grill? Was that okay?
It was okay. My Jeep wasn't so much.
Oh.
Yeah. The tree landed on top of it. So.
Yeah. I'm now going to be careful when I ask people in the Midwest about if they've ever experienced a tornado, but they should be careful with me too, because it was close.
You are.
I am a tornado.
You are a tornado.
It's like asking, have you ever been electrocuted?
Yeah.
Same thing. Have you ever been electrocuted?
Yeah. Remember, kids, electricity will kill you. My new sticker. You want one? I know you do.
Absolutely.
Dude, you
But
kidding me?
I got to tell you the story. It's completely off topic. We were on the flight this morning, and it was interesting because it kind of goes on. Everybody has a story, and this is kind of one of those things that we want to do. And Kenny and I we were lucky enough to get the complimentary upgrade. Kenny, when people piggyback on flights with me, they get the complimentary upgrade, but you typically don't get to sit together because you're the last. You're not paying for it. So Kenny was up a couple rows, and I was sitting with a young guy, and we ended up started talking about life and asking each other questions and everything. And he's like, "Yeah, you ever been electrocuted?" I was like, my laptop, I got this sticker. I found this sticker. You see, it says, "Remember, kids, electricity will kill you."
Well, and I was like, for you.
It's funny you say that. I've been electrocuted twice and shocked once. And he looked at me. He's like, "There's a difference between electrocuted and shocked. I've been electrocuted twice and shocked once. Shock is when you stick a paper clip or a screwdriver in a light socket. Electrocuted is when you get zapped and you can't let go." And so you had this whole wild story. And the wild thing was, in our conversation, transition, his father was actually in the Pentagon during 9/11.
Wow.
Right? It was crazy. He was on the other side. I mean, it was a wild story. But it comes down to, like, you never know stuff until you ask. So it's like,
what prompted that question? How does that question come up when you're sitting next to someone on a plane?
The sticker I showed you. Remember I
No,
showed you my
he-
laptop sticker?
He saw the sticker and he asked the
Yeah, I
question.
saw the sticker, and then
plus,
we had.
plus Josh's hair was spiked up really
Oh
high.
yeah,
this
it was.
morning.
Yeah.
Like he combed it with a pork chop. It was
Yeah, it
looking,
was
it
good.
looking
That's
big.
what happens when I. That's what
was
happens
5
when I
a.m.
pick up at 3 a.m.
3 a.m. pickup, yeah.
But yeah, no, it was pretty funny. Yeah, have you ever been electrocuted? You know, it's one of those things. You ask questions, and then you kind of want to know the answer, and then all of a sudden you go, "Ooh, should I have asked that one?" So,
Yeah.
Tricky.
but
It's tricky.
yeah.
There's
I look. I hope I never say yes. There's very few weather incidents that I feel really uncomfortable about. I felt bad. I felt badly, and I felt vulnerable when the polar vortex hit and my house was flooded. But my house was still. I was still covered. Right. Had water coming and everything else. An unpredictable tornado that can move 3 feet one way or the other and put an absolute destruction, and rip through the center of my house or completely miss it and take up some twigs in the driveway. That's scary, right?
Yeah.
That's scary. So we've been through
hurricanes,
and blizzards and every type of
microbursts, all
Yeah.
sorts of weird things.
earthquakes.
Yep.
And if I had to experience it again, I'd go through another hurricane in Key West.
Yeah,
Just don't get COVID this time. All right, just don't get COVID.
it's a year ago today.
It is a year ago
Yeah,
today.
year ago today. That was
It's an
Kenny was
anniversary
saying
of the
it's-
hurricane, and we were there.
Yeah.
We were there.
Yeah, I wasn't.
No, you weren't. You ran.
Kenny and I were there.
We lived to tell the tale.
Matt Oliver, one of the first school I worked at, still had nuclear fallout shelter signs in the basement. There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those.
Yep.
So,
With the big steel door filled with asbestos.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
packed.
When I worked in Newton, they had 55-gallon drums of potable water with that sign on them, and we
Yeah.
had cans of the biscuits with
Oh,
the key that used to open the can. I think one of my custodians was selling them on eBay.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
I'd be eating them. Those are delicious.
Yeah.
50-year-old biscuits
Yeah.
and tainted water.
But there's still, but you probably still have nuclear. Do you have nuclear fallout shelter signs on those old school buildings still? I mean, you take them down.
Not that I'm
We've got a
aware
bunch
of.
of them still in Massachusetts.
I mean,
I had some in one of my elementary schools. Absolutely,
Yeah.
It was a fallout shelter in the bottom. It was built in the original building was built in '52.
Yeah.
I mean, there probably are. I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found
We
a
do
sign
have-
that said smoking area.
Right. Yeah, that's a great. And it was
Think
for
about
students
that.
and
How long has
teachers.
that been? Yeah.
Yeah, students and teacher smoking area. 'cause
That
they
was
wouldn't
that was
smoke
for the
together.
'70s, and in the '30s they were smoking in the classrooms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the delivery rooms too,
Yeah.
at the
A
hospital.
lot of
Yeah.
the schools still have apartments for the people that lived on site when they took care of the schools.
Really?
Wow.
They had a caretaker.
Yep.
Huh.
That's
Lived on premises. Yeah.
I had a
Wow.
custodian that lived on site. But his
was
wife,
smoking.
yeah.
that's a little different. That's a little different. Paul.
He was living in the basement. We had to clear him out. He moved all his stuff in there, and it got messy.
Oh, wow.
Hey, funny seeing you here. Yeah. What are you doing?
It's on time though.
Checking the boiler again.
yeah.
it's,
Getting right.
it's July. Oh,
Yeah.
Gotta be too safe.
Yeah. No, well, this is great, Casey. I appreciate you jumping on with us. This was kind of a impromptu last minute, but I'm just so
It's always a good time.
yeah. It's always it is because it's a good time when you have good people and you have great people. You had one of your custodians over here. She came in and just say she just finished vacuuming, and Kenny says, "You're doing a great job," and she says, "I'm just filling in, but I'll take the credit for it." And we have fun with it. But everybody in your team, the times that I've been here, everybody on your team is smiling. Everybody on your team seems to look out for one another. I think that's an innate quality from leadership. From talking to Stasia, who's the most energetic.
Oh, Stacia. Oh, my God.
Stacia. Oh my God.
We were laughing. I was like, she come out of her office and she's like Tigger bouncing on her tail.
Paul,
She
wait,
was floating.
yeah, wait.
She was floating
yeah.
across the lobby.
She was.
Oh my God.
she was excited.
amazing.
And we've been told that she is like this all the time. Paul, when you meet her, I mean, just the energy it's just amazing.
And it's 2:00 in the afternoon on a Thursday.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like 1,000
Yeah.
degrees out. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy you're here!"
Yeah.
I had to go get coffee to do that.
Yeah. And I can't even do it with coffee. I'm like, yeah, it was amazing. But it's definitely shows that the team wins here, and you guys are doing great work. And this board, I'm going to tell you, if anybody takes something away, and you can see this in the top line, it's a series of 3 boards, and it acknowledges and recognizes everyone that was in operations, whether you were a custodian, whether you were a director of facilities, whether you were a wrench turning mechanic, whatever you did, you're on here, and there's a little bit about you. And if you passed away, as a memorial, and it's pretty cool. And
Everybody on the board that's up there was here for at least 15 years or longer.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's really, it's
It
really,
is.
really powerful to see the size and scope and how many. It's really just a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful homage to the people that worked hard.
Yeah.
Gave their whole lives.
Well, and when he says they were 15 years or longer, a lot of these people retired from a full career and came over
Right.
and put in a second career.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And for passion and care and everything else. And I think that's, maybe you don't do this in your district, but do something to recognize your team. And if, someone said, well, I haven't done this in 1968, I don't have who was here in 1968, but you have who was here in 2023.
Start
And
somewhere.
if you start somewhere, do something.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, and we talk next year, you've done nothing, and you're just a year further along of being behind. And our teams now need more recognition, more accolades, more reason to come to work, more fun. And this is something that people can look at and say, someday I want to be on that board. And maybe they're on year 14. Maybe they're on year 14 and they're tired.
Yeah.
And they come in and look at this board. And they know, hey, if I don't make 15 years, I'm not going to be on this board to be here for all eternity. I mean,
All the time.
yeah. So it's probably a big deal to a lot of people that
It is.
a lot of people don't even recognize. So, but this is great. You're stuck with me for the next couple of days.
It's going to be outstanding.
Yeah, Kenny's stuck with me for
Wait till that 4-hour ride
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
No food, no stops. It's gonna take
No
two.
food, no
One
stops.
large Folgers.
Yeah.
But being that you talked about climbing a tower for 7.5 hours, I'm not
Yeah,
too
yeah.
worried about a 2.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
I would have been, me, I would have had to carry 2 meals if I was climbing.
You would have
the tower.
carried
Yeah,
2
yeah,
meals.
oh,
a,
yeah.
breakfast,
Oh,
a breakfast, a lunch, and a second lunch.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just on the radio, you go yellow rain, and
Yeah.
then everybody else gets out of the
Let me tell you. let me tell you, Paul. We found the secret stash of good breakfast at the Admirals Club this morning at Logan. We got bacon and eggs and all sorts of stuff around the bend. So
How
next
come
time
when
you
I
go,
get there, I get bagels and cream cheese?
well, that's
You
because
never- 'cause
you
you never
don't
walk
take
far
you
enough.
don't take the walk far enough in. You go
far
right for
enough
the
deep. We had a lovely woman this morning say, "Hey, there's full breakfast down the other end." Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. So now you know where we're at. And hey,
All right.
welcome back, our man Z up in which city, getting ready for Halloween time next month. We have them at Collins Middle School, 1902. So he's got the nuclear fallout sign still up.
Nice.
Yeah, I gotta get with you offline because my brother-in-law is a mason and he's up at a former school doing work in Salem, and he was on the second floor and he took a video of footsteps on the floor, but there were no footsteps on the first floor for getting up on the second floor. So we got to talk about if that building's on the haunted.
Ooh,
it's
it
a
is
former
Salem.
school. Yeah, it's a former school. He said it was creepy.
It is
He
Salem.
said the floors were all like perfectly clean on the
except
first floor
for the
until he got to the second floor. And you got to the second floor, and there's literally footprints down the hallway. So I'm gonna get the address to you, and you can look up and see if that school is one of the haunted ones, and if it's a good ghost or not good ghosts. So,
It's interesting.
but no, this is really cool. Anything close it out? Did you get anything I missed? I think we covered it all, right? We had extra.
You got a shout out, or you're just going to turn around and look at that board?
Well, do you want to talk about that, Kenny?
That shout out. You got a shout out?
Oh, can you see that? I don't know if Al can
Yes,
see.
I can see that. But there are people that don't have the video, so it's a picture
right,
of
so-
a broom and it says Shirley on it.
Right. So
Yeah.
Shirley. So when I walk
Tell us
when
about
I
Shirley.
when I walk into the lobby of this beautiful building here in St. Joe's, there's a broom out front with a dustpan and a whole bunch of other implements of destruction. And it's clearly labeled Shirley's. And I know that Shirley would take great umbrage if you took her broom.
She would be very upset.
How
So
do you know?
I asked Casey, who's Shirley? She's been here how many years?
She's been here since 1991.
1991. She's north of 70, and she shows up and works like a machine every day.
3 a.m.
3 a.m. She comes in at 3 a.m. just because she feels like it.
3 a.m. and she does all of her dispatching for our employees or subs to, schools or people who've called in sick or on vacation and those things for us.
Wow.
So it's folks like that are hidden behind the scenes, the Shirleys that are out there. So that's if I can
Shirley's
take advantage
awesome.
of the opportunity to give a shout out, I'm giving a shout out to
Yeah.
Shirley because that's awesome.
Yeah, happy 50th anniversary. She's celebrating her 50th anniversary with her husband right now. She's been off for 3 weeks, so we've been
Good for her.
missing her. So,
You've been holding.
she'll be back next
You've
week.
been holding the broom close to the door, waiting
Mhm.
for welcoming her. Well, happy. So first of all, Paul, this is the first. Kenny did the shout out, so you might need to get some shout outs because maybe I'm taking all the shout out glory. So be to work because next time I might call you out and say you do the shout out. But happy
I'll have
anniversary.
something ready.
Yeah, happy anniversary to Shirley, and that's just another testament to the great teams that are in these schools that are, as we call unsung heroes. That they do the work. They're the first in and the last out. They're the ones that make sure that these buildings are safe, conditioned as best as possible with the resources that they have, clean, and they're in an environment that people want to be in. And that's pretty impressive. And the work is often not seen because they're here at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, not because they have to be, but because they want to be.
Yep.
And that's like hard. You don't hear that often, right? We're hearing too much about people that don't want to work and are quiet quitting and doing all these other things. We don't hear about these things, so we need to hear more of that. Great observation, great catch, and great shout out. I think that'll do it, Paul. You can go back to get out of timeout upstairs, and we're gonna rock and roll. And
We're going to Kansas
I
City,
gotta
Joe.
get packed. I gotta
Going
get
to
packed
Kansas
and ready
City,
to
Joe.
get to the airport.
yeah,
We'll see you tomorrow.
What time do you don't leave early?
I leave at 11 a.m.
Okay,
So I gotta get packed.
yeah. So you'll be up for 9 or 10 hours
Yeah. Well,
by the time you get to the airport.
I go to the gym at 5.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do. Yep. Don't miss the gym. Well, we'll see
No.
you. Safe travels.
All right. We'll see you
Safe
guys when we get
travels.
there.
Well, that'll do it for another episode. We may come on an impromptu live, so be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube because that makes the announcements of when we're going to do these live podcasts. And we love doing them because we love the interaction. Thank you, Matt and Z and Chris and Burke, even Burke with the colonoscopy reference. I'm not gonna live.
Lean as a whistle.
I'm not gonna live that one down, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad that I've been able to build a conversation about it. I'm actually going to be on Burke's podcast next week.
Okay.
I don't think it's live, but we're doing a recording on being vulnerable because guys have a hard time being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're gonna dig into. So in the meantime, we really appreciate the 5-star rating and reviews on the podcast platforms, following us, subscribing, doing all the things that help build us more exposure. So more school facility professionals and more people, just people in general should be listening to this podcast to see all that gets put into the work that's being done behind the scenes every day. So appreciate everybody taking the time. Paul, we'll see you tomorrow. And in the meantime, if you can be anything, be awesome. Have a great day.
Bye.